Today, on this episode of Coach's Corner, we have Coach Kweisi, director of the Baltimore Terps Youth Organization. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm good, Coach. How you feeling today? Thanks for having me.
I'm good.
For bringing me out.
Yes, sir. Now, I kind of gave it a little bit away, but I normally let the coaches introduce themselves, so I just gave you a brief introduction. But if you could, Coach, introduce yourself, your program, and your tenure.
My name's Coach Kweisi. Everybody's called me Coach K. Been around a while. I started the Baltimore Terps youth sports. First started out football back in 2012. Since then, we've added lacrosse in 2016. I think basketball 2018. Girls lacrosse 2018. And we also have cheer as well. So football, basketball, lacrosse, and cheer. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here today, Coach. You know, we've been trying to set this up for quite a while. You know, yourself, I definitely wanted to sit down with you, you know, being one of the people that I actually took a few pointers from, you know, when starting my program. You know, I seen you around up at the Terps field. You know, I was able to come around sometimes. You know, different players that I might have had, that I might have been working with, was planning your program. I was trying to steal them. But yeah, like I said, I actually took a lot of pointers from you in starting your program. So I want to give you that, you know, just a little nugget, you know, before we get going. And, you know, I thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Okay. So, Coach, I know you mainly, you know, you got different programs. You got basketball, football, young men's lacrosse, young ladies lacrosse. But more so, I know you know, per se, to be a football coach, right? So I wanted to ask you, when did you first fall in love with the game of football?
Oh wow! So I mean, so for me, the you know, the Terps is pretty much a product of my life and my vision, how I see things, right? So you know, as a young man, you know, I grew up in the Woodlawn area. You know, I played football, you know, basketball. I mean, sorry, not football, baseball. You know, as a young kid, you know, elementary, middle school, all throughout. And you know, I'll always love the game, right? But more importantly for me, you know, my father passed away when I was 9 years old. So, you know, what was really important for me, and I tell folks all the time, I don't necessarily remember all of my teachers' names, but I can tell you all my coaches' names, right? And everyone that coached me and it took an interest in me, you know, as a young man. So, you know, fast forward, you know, Dad, you know, high school, you know, college, you know, get a family and everything, and then my son started, you know, wanted to play football. When he turned, I want to say probably 9 or 10. I took him out to several programs, right? You know, to sign him up and register him. And you know, all of them at that time, you know, we talk about early 2000s. I started coaching in 2002. So a lot of things were, you know, it wasn't a lot for the big boys, unlimited weight. So a lot of programs turned him away, right? Said he's too big to play, which I thought was crazy because football is a big man sport.
Right.
My son, he got turned down a bunch of other places, so I took him to Hamilton, who at that time was the only unlimited weight football program for youth in town at the time. Started him there. Soon after, you know, the coaching staff there, you know, they wrote me in. You know, I'm at every practice and, you know, at all the games, and they say, hey, you know, you're here, you might as well come out and help us out, right? So that launched my football coaching career. Great organization, spent 9 years there, loved it. But probably around 2010, 2011 was kind of, you know, time to do something different. So I thought I was going to get into refereeing. I want to stay close to the games, close to the kids. Took some courses and classes, but it just didn't feel right. The field that we use right on Pimlico in Northern Parkway and Park Heights, you know, I used to walk my dog out there. I live in that neighborhood. So There used to be a big tree there, and they had built the obstacle course for the police academy. And I was like, man, if this tree wasn't here, or this was a little bit bigger, this would be a perfect place for a football program. One day I came up back there, and the tree had been cut down. It was gone, right? And I said, wow. So we're back, sat down with my wife, told her what I wanted to do, put together a business plan, put my ideas and thoughts on paper, put it in a presentation form, and shopped it. I went out and was able to get some good initial support. Raised about the first year probably in grants about $10,000 to $15,000. Put a lot of my own money into it as well, and that's how the Baltimore Terps was born. It originally was supposed to be 2 teams. Which is, I look back on it today and it's funny. We were supposed to have a 12U team and a 14U team. That's what our first year we ended up having a 14, 12, 10 and 8, a 10 and an 8, and then within 2 years we were up to 14 teams. So it's been a good ride. I've learned a lot. I consider myself more of a community man versus a football coach. I really, all of the sports that we offer, I really look at those sports as just as a way to reach the kids. It doesn't matter if we had a chess club, if we had, if I was into, I don't know, gardening, then we would have a garden club. My goal is just to, reach kids specifically within our community and imprint upon them the same things that were imprinted upon me as a young man and playing sports, with my friends, with my coaches, and that neighborhood feel, is always what I try to make sure we bring to the Terps program.
Okay, so we're gonna go back a little bit.
Okay.
We want to talk about Lil K.
Okay.
Not Coach K. We want to talk about Lil K.
Gotcha.
Right. So tell us what it was like growing up out Woodlawn.
I mean, it was a great place to grow up. I mean, it's. I tell anybody that listen all the time. It's like, I went to Woodlawn Elementary School, right, which nobody knows even exists. It was building right across the street from Monaghan's. So our family, we moved into that neighborhood, into the Glen Oak neighborhood, early on. I want to say mid '70s, right, maybe '76, '77, somewhere around there. With the Woodlawn Elementary, first, then with the Woodlawn Middle, high school. After high school, I joined the Marine Corps. 4 years in the Marine Corps. Got out, went to college, and had a couple of different careers, but settled into what I'm doing now. So, but a big part of my life, I would say probably for the past 24 years has been with the kids in the community in some type of sports aspect.
Okay. When some of us have it, some of us don't. So I just want to check with you. Who would you say, or who would you consider to be your sensei?
So I would absolutely have to say my sensei was Coach Frederick Vini. Coach Fred Vini, rest in peace. Coach Vini took me under his wing when I first started at Hamilton. Many of the things I say and do, I've taken from him, right? And this was 24 years ago, right? He was probably my biggest imprint in regards to coaching and how to deal with children, how to deal with parents, and what it means to be a man of the community. So, I have to, everything regarding my coaching, what I know and my foundation, I have to point back to Coach Fred Vini.
Okay. And you met Fred Vini when you first put your son in football.
Yeah, when I first, he was my son's first coach at Hamilton.
Okay.
When he passed away, he was the JV head coach. We had a JV varsity system. When he passed away, I took over the JV. I'd been under him for at least 3 years at that time. Times were different back then. To be a coach, you had to really be under another coach at the same time. You guys weren't just walking into saying, "Hey, I'm going to coach."
Right.
You had to have some type of tutelage or apprenticeship, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. as little K, young K, did you have sensei?
If I had to say that, if I go back to my play for Woodlawn Redskins, I would have to say probably my best coach, my most favorite coach was Coach Mays. I think he's still alive. He's still around. I haven't talked to him in years, but yeah, it would be Coach Mays. Man. He was probably who I looked up to the most. Yeah.
Okay, so what about Coach Mays? You know, would grant him, you know, the sensei-ship.
Biggest thing is his present. I mean, I think he was present, and that is what I tell a lot of my coaches. I think is a big, firm foundation for kids nowadays. Be present and care. Kids aren't stupid. Kids are very smart. They know who's interested in them and who's not, right? But showing that, having that presence and also that care. You know, real soon when you deal with a child, it doesn't matter what sport you play. The sport itself can disappear very quickly.
Right.
When you build that bond with those children. You follow me? And it doesn't matter what sport you're coaching, right? If you have that bond for those kids, they know that you would do anything for them, and they will run through a wall for you.
Right. Okay. So that was your first start. Was that your first start at what 20? When you went to go with Coach Vinny, that was
my first. I'd never imagined being a coach, and when they asked me to be a coach or help coach, I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. I was like, oh, me? You know, it was a huge honor. But with that comes a lot of responsibility, as you know, as being a coach. You know, but yeah, that was I had never even thought about it.
Okay, so that first season, take us through that first season.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
Absolutely, I didn't know what I was doing. I look back on it even when I took over 3 years later as a head coach under Coach Fred Vini. I still didn't know what I was doing. I often say I was surprised or I was shocked that parents actually let me coach their child. I look at myself and look back on those days, and I wasn't a good coach. I knew how to yell, right? I knew the game as I thought I knew it, but how to, you know, it's an art, it's a talent, it's a craft to be able to nurture young men and women, right? Find something even for a kid that may not be that athletic. Find that one or two things that they can do to help the team, and therefore helping themselves. It's not easy, right? So it's a craft. It takes some time to learn that and to get that.
Okay. And you started your program how many years after joining Coach V?
So I started Hamilton. I didn't start Hamilton. I was with Hamilton 2002 to 2012. No, 11, and in 2012 I started the Terps.
Okay. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from working with Coach V?
My biggest takeaway was that if as a coach, if you have 25 players on the team, even your least talented player, if you cannot find one thing for them to do, then you're not a coach. If you cannot teach a kid at least to do one thing, whether he's a lineman, a receiver, you know, even if he's not athletic, you know, if he can't run fast, well, you teach him how to block, right? If he can't block, well, you teach him how to you know, I don't know, get into space, something, anything, right? And that every kid counts. You know, every kid that comes out on that field or on that court, every one of those children count. And your least players is just as important as your best player, least talented player. I'm saying it's just as important as your most talented player. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Describe your coaching style in one word.
In one word, discipline. I'm huge on discipline.
Yes, sir. Give us the fundamentals of your program and the culture.
Oh yeah, that's real simple. Family first, right? We are a family organization. Our mission statement is on our website. You know, regardless of age, you know, or size, ability, weight, doesn't matter. You know, I believe that all our children are entitled to competitive, organized, safe, structured athletics, right? And I that walks with me in everything that we do. Um, you know, regarding consistency of practice time, communication with parents, um, finances, all of those things that need to happen way before you hit the field or the court. I think has been the strength of our program.
Okay. Um, so I think you touched on a little bit. Would you say, or I'm gonna say who, but I'm gonna say what would you say shaped your coaching philosophy?
My own first and foremost, my own worldview, and my own morals, and my own way of how I see things. Right. Um, I run a structured life myself. Right. I don't overextend my bills. I don't party. I don't do things like that. I think that structure, going back to my coaching philosophy, discipline as well, is important in everything that we do, and everything in life, especially as men, teaching other young men and young girls, but primarily for myself as a football coach, other young men. Um, so yeah, that really does dictate my program as well as my coaching philosophy. Just discipline, structure. Not saying it doesn't happen. We do very little things on the fly. I'm a big planner. I'm a big structure guy. So that might be that military background. It may also be that the corporate background as well. So
Okay. What would you say is the biggest misconception of coaching?
of coaching,
Yes, sir.
that just because you played, you can coach. I think that's the number one misconception that I've run across. I get guys coming all the time. Yeah, I played in college, and they start running down their football resume or their basketball resume, and I listen and I say, hey, that sounds really good. It's impressive. That means nothing if you cannot teach an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old how to do it or the fundamentals, right? That's number one. Two, you have to be of good character. You can't. Yeah, I don't care how much football you know. I don't care how much basketball you know. But if you out here doing things that are not indicative or not positive, that a role model, and that's what when you become a coach, whether you want to or not, you're a role model, right? Um, I always tell my coaches and my staff, a Baltimore Terps event it always should be an event that you can bring your grandmother to. If you can't bring your grandmother, if you wouldn't bring your grandmother here, then we're not going to do that. So,
I like that, Coach. What did you learn from your playing days that you still use today?
I don't know. So everybody. I don't know. I like to say everybody, but a lot of folks have this big story to tell. I would say poke high. With the I did this, I did that. I was a youth football player, man. I was average to above average on a good day. I was never that spectacular kid that ran up and down the field and broke records, right? And I'm proud of that. I'm not ashamed of that, right? I was a good teammate, right? I loved the sport. When I went out there on the field, whether it be football or baseball, I gave it everything I had. And I had my moments of, grandeur and excelling and things like that. But, I wasn't that all metro guy or whatever like that. No.
Take us through your decision following high school to go to the Marines.
It was probably, that was not even primary. It was 100% based on economics. So I came out of high school in '87, right? There was a lot going on in that era. That was the beginning of, the crack epidemic and that seized our communities across the nation. I saw it happening. I saw, people that graduated from high school coming back, to visit. And I'm like, why are you here? I saw people that graduated high school that weren't really doing much in the community. And I just wanted more for myself. I knew I didn't want to go to college, right? And I chose the Marine Corps because I say, well, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to the best, right? And it was ironically, it was four or five of my classmates. We were all in boot camp, the same platoon together. So a lot of us made that decision to leave Baltimore and get out of town during that time. And it was by far, as a 17-year-old, it was incredible that I had that vision. It was the best decision I ever made. Because when I came back from overseas and, traveling in the military and traveling around the world, I could then see the devastation and impact that it had on our community, especially in Baltimore.
Okay, so take us through your first time getting off the bus at boot camp.
I mean, straight fear, I mean, just that, if everybody's been, parasailing, it was fear, right? Everybody says anything different is lying, right? It was probably at the time, as a young man, as a 17-year-old, by far the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life at that point, and probably still is up there in the, top 5 of achievements and of difficult things Marine Corps boot camp. So.
Okay, and you said you had 5 other classmates, so you had some familiarity with some people.
Yeah.
Okay. How was your first, drill sergeant or?
So once again, I mean, it's just funny, right? Those drill sergeants, much a sports team or a platoon is not much different than a football team, right? I remember all my drill instructors, right? And they imprinted upon me as well, right? And I think that's where that discipline, you can't do anything. If you playing football, you have to, you got to be able to get the snap count right? That's discipline. Getting 11 players, whether they be 6-year-olds or 25-year-olds, to all move at the same time is impressive, right? We see it on the grass, we see it on the sandlot fields, on youth football games every day. We see it in college, we see it at the pros at the highest levels, right? So it takes a commitment from everybody on the team as well as the coach. But that coach is the leader in getting that commitment and buy-in from everybody for all 11 players to work as one and work as a team for that 15 seconds. If you're lucky that play goes on.
Right. Okay. How do you earn the trust of your players, Coach?
Being genuine. I am who I am. Right? They know Coach K. They're going to yell. They're going to say something crazy. He's going to turn right around and just start laughing and joking and dancing right along with them. Just being yourself, being genuine, being present, and once again, showing the children that you care. It doesn't take a lot. It's not a. I often wonder, for some folks it's really difficult, and I wonder, why all you have to do is just be yourself, be authentic.
Okay. What makes a player coachable for Coach K?
Which makes a player coachable? I would say simple, being able to follow instructions, right? Just care. Effort. I know that every kid is not going to make a tackle. He's not going to make a tackle. I know it's going to be times he's going to jump off sides. I know it's going to be times he can, miss a block, right? I just want to see effort. I just want to see that you try. I want to see that you care. I want to see that you take some pride in your job and who you are. Everything else is teachable after that.
Okay. So I know that you are the program head, the founder. When was the last time you picked up a whistle and actually coached the team yourself?
So I hung up my whistle last year before last. Okay. I coached my last 12 years. 12 years has always been my sweet spot as far as age groups, teams that the age I like to work with. And it just became the only reason I did it, and that was after 22 years, right? So the only reason I did it just became just too much, too difficult for me to coach and run the program at the same time. And I always knew it was happening, but it really showed that my team and my players suffered because my attention was being pulled in 1,000 other different directions during practice time. Whether it be organizational things or family things or whatever have you like that. So I said, get a little bit older, focus on the program, let these younger guys come up and coach these younger kids, as well as, if I'm being honest, the age gap became way. A lot of times you can bridge it, but that age gap became way too distant. You know, me being 50 plus years old, working with a kid that's 11, right? We get it. I understand. He thinks I don't know, the music and all those things I do. Right now, the fact that my first year quarterback, wide receiver, lineman, they're all back coaching in the program and last year they even won their 10U championship. So that was their first year back, or first year coaching for some of them. So I mean that's we have a good crop of young people that I think in the next few years that will really be poised to take over the program, that have come up through the program, which I think is extremely honorable.
What would you, well, outside of football, outside of lacrosse, outside of basketball, what would you consider some of your wins and losses in life?
So I've lost players, right? No matter what we do, I don't buy into that. We can't save them all. Yeah, we can. Do things happen? Yes, they do. So I've lost players to, unfortunately, street violence here in Baltimore. I've lost players to sickness, to illness. I lost players to car accidents. That's probably the most hurting thing. And that, I have children of my own, right? But when you hear about losing a player or a kid that you coach or someone's out of your tutelage, it hurts. It hurts. But there's so many high points, right? I mean, I don't, there's so many high. We've just had our first Division I lacrosse player out of our program. Several Division I, and two football players, of course. Basketball is a small part of what we do, basically recreational. But we have some of our cheerleaders working in the mayor's office, working in Parks and Recs. I mean, we have a really good crop of kids that go on to become good, productive citizens, right, in Baltimore and go on to do great things. And that's our stated goal. The sport really isn't.
Good, Coach. What would you consider the heart of a champion?
Never giving up, right? So that's ultimately what any coach wants for his team, right? What better victory have you ever had when you were down in the fourth quarter, or down 2 touchdowns, or down 13 points with 2 minutes left in a basketball game, right? And your players never stop playing. You never stop coaching, right? They never give up. And to be going, and then from there to go out and be victorious to win a game, I think that lesson is probably any kid, player, coach, or whatever that has experienced that, then knows that they can do anything in life. They can do anything, and it's proof that you never give up, right? Even when you want to, even when sometimes it makes sense mentally. Hey, you know what? We're down X number of points. We have to do this, this, and this. The odds aren't with us, or just logically, we're not going to win this game. But you don't give up. So I think that if any kid, or even any player, any coach in my program, can have that experience or walk away with that experience, it undoubtedly makes them a better person.
Coach, 20 plus seasons. And I mean, keep going soon, you're going to be going into 30.
Man, I'm trying to get out, man.
So
I'm trying to retire, man.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be possible right now.
And don't tell me that. That's not what I want to hear.
But what would you say, what season or, what event made it a turnaround season for you? From this season on, done things differently or some things went down. What was that season? Take us through that.
Undoubtedly, I'll say our worst season. We're definitely on a really big trajectory. We've grown our registration the past couple years 12 to 30% as far as getting our numbers back up. At one time, we had really, really high numbers. We were in almost 300 kids in the program, which is big for a Baltimore City program. We're talking about just football. But that was too big. We lost our intimacy. We lost our family feel, right? And we got the program back to a manageable size. Joined a new league. We had some challenges in that new league. At the same time, we were transitioning from being this big program to a little bit of a smaller program. And from a wins and losses perspective, that season was really bad, right? I'm gonna say this was 3 years ago. It wasn't bad because hey, we lost this game, right? It wasn't bad, but I could just see the kids become a little bit more deflated. The parents become a little bit. Having a program-wide losing season is difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to rebound. Kids don't come back. Parents don't come back, right? And when that happened, I kind of wanted to fold the program. I kind of wanted to quit because I knew, not because I knew I couldn't do it, I knew what it would take to do it, right? And it's almost like starting over again. It's that once again, where I just talked about that never quitting, that never giving up, right? Even when you want to. And it's been a long road 2 years back, but last year we had 3 teams in the championship. One of them won. Our 7U lost 6-7. I'm sorry, 6-0. Our 13U, they lost a tough game to an outstanding team. I mean, the whole team was loaded. I think half the team was going to DeMatha, private schools. So, but having 3 teams in that championship really made me feel good because it says, okay, fine, we're back, right? We did the work, right? It was hard, it was difficult, but we're back. And then now, as we go into 2026 football season, we really are looking to expand on that, right? What excites me the most is our lacrosse program, because although African Americans are very well underrepresented in lacrosse, it's unfortunate because we shouldn't be, right? And I look at the opportunities that lacrosse brings to the children in Baltimore City, and they far outreach football and basketball.
I'm not a lacrosse guy, so take me through those opportunities. Elaborate a little bit more, Coach.
So first of all, lacrosse is first of all, let me say this. I've never played lacrosse, right? My son played 2 years of lacrosse. That was how I was introduced to it. Lacrosse for the Terps was originally started as an off-season sport for our football players. We had no ambitions of being a great lacrosse program. We just wanted something for our football players to do, in particular our linemen and everybody during the off-season. So lacrosse is unique in that I call it pure sport. It combines football, basketball, soccer, hockey. It may be, I might be pushing it, but maybe a little track field, right? It's all sport. I feel like, the athleticism of a lot of the children, or some of the children in Baltimore City, lends to lacrosse. Unfortunately, I've sat down with US Lacrosse. I've talked to many lacrosse people. I think that lacrosse, it would be much bigger in urban communities, particularly the African American community, if there were a shining star, right? There's no LeBron James. in lacrosse. There's no, Lamar Jackson in lacrosse. I mean, there are, but they're not. They're really great players. Don't get me wrong. No, they're great players. I don't want to diminish any of their achievements. But one that is recognizable to the children
And
in our communities, that we don't have that. And if I feel, I mean, even still, we saw what Tiger Woods did to golf in the African American community, right? We saw what the Williams sisters did to tennis in the African American community, right? We don't have that in lacrosse. The closest we have is Jim Brown, right? And even for myself, he was, a historical figure, let alone for children nowadays being able to relate to that, right? So a lot of it takes a lot of convincing just to get parents just to try it. I'll tell you this: I've lost some of my best football players to lacrosse. When after they played lacrosse, they don't want to play football anymore, or they don't want to. That becomes their main, or they may, but that becomes their main sport. It's a fun game. It's pure sport. I'm proud of it because it's an indigenous American game, right? The indigenous people, they called it the creators game. It was worship to them, right? It was very sacred to them. And I feel like we still, as African Americans, even with that connection, we can still honor them and ourselves in playing that game. And from a practical standpoint, if we want to talk about recruitment, private school, high school, right? Scholarship funds, right? I feel like urban kids have a really good opportunity for that to open a lot of doors for them, right? And I don't know if it sounds harsh, or people take it how they want to take it, I don't care. I tell every time my parents, I'm saying, listen, there's nothing special about a black kid in Baltimore City that plays football. There's nothing special about a black kid in Baltimore City that plays basketball. But if your son is playing lacrosse or your daughter's playing lacrosse, and they put that on a private high school application or any high school application, or they put that on a college application, that I'm also in my free time, my hobbies, I play lacrosse, it raises an eyebrow because it shows that that kid is a little bit different. They can go against the grain, not necessarily what everybody else is doing, right? And that's what I see a lot out of my lacrosse players. They're almost never followers, right? They do something because they want to do it.
Take us through a phrase, saying, or message that you use with your players, something that they're gonna always remember, something they can always recognize.
It's a coach, well, like an ism, like a Coach K ism.
One of your go-to messages.
Wow. Hold up, I got them all. I'm just trying. It's like for some reason you answered me now. It's all go blank. It's funny. I need one of my players in here. They can tell you and be happy to mimic me doing it. I don't know. Give me a second, man. I don't know. I'm drawing a blank, man. I don't know why. And it should be a funny moment, right? But it's I tell them if they continue to do something that I don't like, right? After I've told them several times, I'll use the phrase, I'm gonna make you run until I get tired.
Hey, that'll work right there.
Say what?
That'll slow them down right there.
That slow them down. Yeah, you gonna run until I get tired, right? So yeah.
Okay. So we said we have some D1 players. We got some players in the mayor's office. We got some players, doing some great things that came from the program, right? How would you define the success beyond the wins and losses for your players? Like, tell me, what is your defining moment or your defining thing about them? Is it the job? Is it the completing the school? Is it the, take me through that. I don't want to answer all of them, but you give me your account of it.
So originally, if I take you back and I send it to you, my original proposal that we put together in 2012, right, for the program, what I wanted out of it. I put a statement in there, I put a clause in there that said, as far as program effectiveness, and that we would not know how effective the program is until at least 10 years from now, right? So, and it was very, very. I don't realize how I had that type of insight, right? But that's very true, right? So it takes that long to see the effect. Anecdotally, I can tell you, I would say 98% of the children that have come through our program are doing very well for themselves, right? I mean, when I say well, I mean, you know, home, working, in school, employed, families, taking care of families, doing all the things that we all do, right? And by all measurements in our society as being a good, productive member of our society, right? I'm a big data guy, so I have we're talking about putting that together now as far as tracking, right? Our oldest kids and what are they doing now, right? I can tell you how many kids we pull from any zip code at any particular time, right? So I collect all that data. So it's just be a matter of putting everything together, right? And sitting down with the numbers and just kind of, and just it's going to be historical, contacting people. Hey, what's going on with this person? Kind of like almost like a cracking open of the yearbook, right? And saying, hey, what happened with him? What happened with him? What happened? So I don't know if we will ever get to just doing something like that, but I think that it would be effort outstanding, but it'd be something for a college student on a paper or something. Mm-hmm. For us to be able to take that data, give it to them, and say, hey, you know what? See what y'all, you all be the judge and see the outcomes. Just strictly from a numbers perspective, but it's also that people element too.
Right. Out of the many games, 20 plus years, multiple championships. Take us to that one game you wish you could have back.
Oh, one. One game I wish we could have back. State championship, 2014 versus Perry Hall. We had some of the most talented, probably hands down talent, football talent wise, most talented team I ever had, right? Most of these guys went on to, kill it in high school, and some of them even in college right now. Talented top to bottom. We weren't quote unquote hiding anybody, right? Everybody could play on that team. Swept the league, right? We were greatest show on turf, right? It was really good. I got wrapped up in the hype, right? I'm a big film guy. I'm a big procedure guy. I just get film on all our opponents, right? Coaches would study it, then we put it in front of the kids. We would study it. We were that locked in, right? Had an all-star coaching staff. Most of the guys that go on that coaching staff now are coaches at high school. I think I'm probably the only one that's not, right? I didn't scout them. We went to our championship game. We had a good time. We beat the team that we knew we were going to beat, right? And then when it came that week before we went to the Maryland State Championship, and that's where they don't have it anymore, but every league around the state would send their champions to that, right? So you could really say who was the best, right? And that was at each age group. I didn't. I got caught in the hype. I didn't get film on the other team, and I knew they were strong. I knew they were tough. Single wing team, right? Coached by some guys that a team of brothers that had been coaching for longer than I had, right? They were sharp, and went into the game. We were going back and forth for the first 5 minutes. Then after that, they were running a single wing offense. We hadn't studied it, and we just could not stop it. We couldn't stop it. Our quarterback got ejected. I want to say the first quarter, and everything went downhill from there. That was that one game I wish, if I could replay, I would get that film. Not saying we would have won it, right? But I walked away feeling ashamed of myself because I felt like I let the team down because I didn't do my job.
Right. That's a tough one right there.
Yeah.
How has coaching changed you as a person?
I got a lot of gray hair. A lot of gray hair. undoubtedly, it has made me a absolutely better person, an absolutely better man. I would not be the man I am without coaching. So people say you only grow when you're uncomfortable, right? It's hard to grow when you're in your comfort zone. Well, during the football season, are you ever truly in your comfort zone? Right? During the basketball, as a coach, you're not. You're constantly evaluating, reevaluating, judging your players, judging yourself, all those things. So to be constantly, put through that process and to be able to thrive in that environment is a true coach. Anybody that's coached the team knows what I'm talking about. To be able to thrive, I envy sometimes the NFL coaches because they get paid to do it. That's all they have to do.
Right.
Us youth coaches here, we got that. We got our families. We got our jobs. We have ourselves. We got to get our time. So to do that, definitely, I do feel like coaching and coaching for the coaching period creates extraordinary men and women that coach.
Yes, sir. Take us to your most important comeback.
My most important comeback. Oh man, I've had a lot of those as well. I had one year, one team that we won a lot. I think we won a championship, but we were down every game. We were just a comeback type team, right? So I'm pretty sure you used to experience that as well. Comeback. I would probably say it would had to have been when we were in the old Mufa League with this KLM Steelers. KLM down in Prince George's County. There was always a battle. It was always a war. We were always the top teams, top two teams in the league. And whenever we faced off against each other, it was a battle. I will say, I'm going to tell you this. I was an assistant coach. I wasn't a head coach. When we played at the first Maryland State Championship, the first time they had an unlimited division, it was Hamilton versus Howard County Bruins. And we were down that year, that game. I almost said a tie game. And we drove maybe, I want to say probably 80 yards up the field without throwing a pass. Right? Without throwing a pass. And we came back to win that game. And that was eventful because it was at Raven. Back then, you could play it, everybody played at Raven Stadium. So we played at Raven Stadium, right? In front of the crowd. First inaugural, state championship game for unlimited weight division. That was probably the biggest comeback yet. I've been a part of. Once again, I wasn't the head coach of that team.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
You remember that?
Seeing y'all, first time y'all went to the Raven Stadium.
Yep.
Yeah, that was big.
That was really
time.
big. Yeah,
that was big time, coach. You kind of spoke on it a little bit, but you probably had a little bit more time to think now. What's your proudest moment as a coach?
One particular moment or moments?
If you got more than one, then we want to hear about it.
So my proudest moment as a coach. I had a player, Tajay Miles, called he's called Game Face. He great youth player. He had an outstanding career at Mervo. His little brother's actually was linebacker at St. Francis. He this past year, his little brother's he's on his way to college, right? Football family, good family. And I remember I saw him. He was in high school. He had already had a lot of city fame or whatever like that. And he told me, he said, I don't know how we got on the conversation. He says, you were my favorite coach. And I said, really? I said, I would have never thought that, right? He said, yeah. He said, you played me when I sucked, right? And that stuck with me. It always will. Meaning that, and I feel like every youth coach should have that experience or should understand that, because oftentimes a lot of guys look for the microwave or the quick fix, or I want all the good players on my team, or everybody can play. He really can't play, so let's not, But understanding that if you are the coach and at the youth level, it's all developmental. And I gave him his shot, and he played, and I worked with him, right? When he knew as a kid he wasn't good, right? And to go on, and after he has all this claim and fame and this and the other, to say, hey, you know what? No, you were my favorite because you paid me when I sucked. It was that's probably it. That's probably it.
Okay, Coach. We want to take this time out to pay homage to Coach V. All right, so we're gonna look at camera B.
Right.
All right, we're gonna tell Coach V, all of the things that he done for us and how we really appreciate those things.
Coach Frederick Vini, wish you was here, brother. Still love you, man. I'm doing it the right way. I'm doing it the way you taught me. I add a little bit to it, but I appreciate you, bro. And a lot of things you did for me, you didn't have to do, but you did it because you saw and instilled in me your vision of keeping things going in continuity for our children and for our community, and standing in the gap for them, and it's all worth it. I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Coach V. Rest in peace, Coach V. We have this segment right here, Coach, we call I Would Do Anything, right? Mm-hmm. So it's called I Would Do Anything to Beat These SOBs.
Okay. So
this is the one group, the one team, the one program. You would do anything to beat this team. We gotta.
Whoa, man! Come on.
we got this in Baltimore.
Man, well, you thought of that question?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Come
sir.
on, man. That's not
sir.
that's.
Yes,
you
sir.
put me out there, man. Wow. Because ultimately, any team that I say, and I want to preface with this: anybody that I say, it's an honor to them. Do you understand? It's an honor to them. Not saying it's a slight or anything like that. But there's a couple teams out there. So we're in Park Heights, right? We live in the shadow of Pikesville, right? So yeah, there are times when we beat their teams. There's times when we don't, right? So I think for us, and they do an outstanding job, great job, right? I can't take nothing from them. But yeah, I wanna when we play them, that's always a game, not like anything angrily, but that's a team that I want to beat. More importantly, there's a little team called Maplewood, right? That a lot of folks don't know about. They don't play in Mid-Maryland, but they're in Bethesda, right? They actually, Kevin Plank used to play there, right? In that program. Right in the middle of Bethesda, they don't have any turf. You think they would have the world. They have a grass field, right? Not much different than ours. Houses around it in the community, nothing fancy. They don't have not one, I've played them over the years, not one athlete that you can say, oh man, number such and such is outstanding, this and that. They don't have a track kid on their team and everything, but Maplewood will get you on that football field and beat you and dismantle you just through coaching, fundamentals, and just proper play. They're not flashy. They only have one uniform. I strive for our program. If I looked for our program to be like anybody's, it would be Maplewood, right? And it's hard. They're hard to beat. I think maybe we've only beaten them once or twice. Of course, all our age groups, they're hard to beat.
Okay, thanks for that little background.
Gotcha.
Now we're gonna point to the camera.
Okay.
We're gonna say, I would do anything to beat, and then you say the team.
I would do anything to beat the Maplewood program.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Coach.
And that's an honor to Maplewood.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out to Maplewood.
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, where does Coach Kweisi see himself in his program?
Right. Well, the next 5 years, I'd like to see the next generation of guys and girls, ladies. Let me get it wrong. The ladies in my program are probably the most important aspect of our program, right? But yeah, we have a board in place. We do some restructuring. I am actively working for my exit, right? But next 5 years, 5 years from now, I would love to wake up on a Saturday morning, jump in my car with my cup of coffee, ride up to the field, get out, watch a couple games, right? Get a hot dog, speak to everybody, have fun, enjoy the Saturday, right? And go home, knowing that the children and the community is in good hands. And things have gone on as they should. That's what I hope for the next 5 years for the Terps program.
Alrighty. So what about yourself personally? Would you want to go high school? Would you want to go to college?
No. I've never had a thought about moving to high school or college or any other levels, primarily because I was good at where I was, and my goal has never been to elevate myself in regards to. I never had those ambitions to move on in football. In my work life, yes, I want to get promotions and advancements. My marriage, of course, always want that to get better. My family life, you always want that to get better. But I felt like, and I still do feel like, the level that I'm at is where I'm most needed, right? And where I had the biggest impact. And to do so would be counteractive or contradictory to my children. In that I always tell them, everybody can't run the ball. Somebody has to block. Somebody has to make a tackle, right? So for me, I feel like my role and my position, because we all tell coach, hey, you play your position, right? My position is perfectly suited at this youth level.
Yes, sir. Okay. Before it's all said and done, right? Because people have certain things that they want to say. This person got this. What would you want your legacy to be?
Exactly. What I want my legacy, all and I've known this for some time. The only thing I want when I'm gone and away from here is for those 10-year-olds that I have in my program now to be sitting back with their buddies after a game or after they've coached a game. Man, remember old Coach K? Man, remember he used to say this, or remember he used to do that, or man, I hated that guy for this, or I loved him for that. I want to be talked about and revered in the same way I can talk about Coach Vini and Coach Mays. And I think there's no bigger honor than that. Yeah, I don't want trophies. I don't want my name on the football field. I don't want any of that. That's the honor. That's what I want my legacy to be.
Alrighty. Coach Kweisi, baby.
All right, bro. Appreciate you, George.
Yes,
you the first one I gave one of these. You know how many people asked me this?
Give me 1 second. I got one more second to get you up out of there. Here we go. Hey, Coach. On behalf of the Coach's Corner and the Crew Channel.
Yes, sir.
What's that? Yes, sir. I need you this one time.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. My
Yes,
man.
sir. So we got some roses and we also got gold whistle for you.
I appreciate you, Coach. Man, thanks, man.
That's our
Our
former,
peers, man.
that's
Look.
our former Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Hey, look. There's no
Let me get a
better
picture
recognition than recognition by your peers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You deserve it, Coach. 20 plus years, going on 30 in the community. Tough community. You get nothing but respect from us, Coach.
Yeah.
Coach Kweisi, baby.
All right.